Let us start with our amazing moderator, Mr. Jayaprakash Kalappan, the CFO of and Company Secretary of Panasonic Appliances India. Mr. Kalappan?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, sir. Namaste, namaste. So the सवाल ये है कि that one daily mundane brain-numbing task that you say, if only we could RPA this, what would it be?
Every Monday means it is more like a what we can say. As being a CFO, my cash flow, it's a main one. Start with the cash flow with the banking operations.
Mr. Jayaprakash, if you are having any problem with cash flow, give it to me. I will give you my bank account.
With pleasure, with pleasure.
Fantastic answer, sir. Fantastic answer. Our next leader is Mr. Jagdish Baheti, the CFO of Delphigen India. Mr. Jagdish, what would you say is that one item you'd want to RPA?
Thanks, Nikita. Every Monday, I would like to talk with all my team members and understand if they have something new where we can, which we can apply in our processes and improve ourselves. And maybe sometimes, some suggestions actually can make cost saving and also affect a lot. So team building exercise is very important and we do it on a regular basis.
Mr. Baheti took quite a bit of a tangent to the answer, but perfect answer, Mr. Baheti. Thank you so very much. Our next leader is Mr. Sambasivan G of Tata Sky Limited. Mr. Ganesan, what would you say is the main thing that you said, you never want to do this again, if only this could be RPA?
So one thought which comes to me is that these sessions on RPA which I am giving, if it can be RPA'd, then what happens is that you don't have to keep on doing this every time, because I think it's now become so much business as usual. I'm not sure we need to talk about why we need an RPA now.
We'll let him exit give you a recording of this session, and probably the next time you are invited as a speaker, send that video to them. Fantastic answer, Mr. Ganesan. Our next guest is Mr. Santosh Abhimani, the Group Chief Financial and Transformation Officer of DTDC Limited. Mr. Santosh, this is a tough question to answer now.
No, actually, it was a very good question, because you never think of how you can apply to yourself first, right? So, I mean, the best thing, if I wish I could get RPA, is please look at all my juniors' tasks and let me know before we do the meeting what they've done and not done, rather than going to the meeting and find it out.
Great. Oh, not what they've done, what they have not done. Universe 1 minus what they have done is your fantastic answer, Mr. Santosh. I'm just making an equation out of it. Fantastic, gentlemen. Stage is all yours. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Nikita, for your quick introduction as well as iceberg kind of thing. Today, this topic could be the RPA impact on the finance processes. So I would like to give some interest on this subject. The RPA is referred to the software that can be easily programmed to do the basic repetitive task across application for the high volume work. So the RPA creates and deploy software robot with the ability to touch, launch and operate the other software. And it does not require to automate the entire process, which need to be useful. Instead of it can be automated certain part of the complicated process involving numerous steps, and that has been the major drive for its use. So there are some basic considerations to determine the possible RPA. Somewhat like it could be the rule-based process. Then process must be repeated at a regular interval or at least the predefined triggers. It must be defined inputs and output. Then fourth will be the task should have the sufficient volume and the data should be the structured one. So if we have this kind of the consideration before we have before we implement the any RPA, we should consider all the things. So RPA will also help to close all the gaps in the finance automation and was the accounting automation. It also optimizes the cash conversion, then prevent the delays in the accounts payable as well as accounts receivables, as well as to reduce the inventory turnover. Further, it helps to the logistic management like that to process the logistic paperwork, tracking the shipment, expediting the orders, supplier follow-up and updating the ERP and the warehouse management system. There are some of the things which can be, we will be using the many cases with the RPA. So with that contrast, I would like to go for the panel discussion. I could start with Mr. Jagdish. Jagdish, the RPA has become the big trend in the plenty of industries. So RPA solutions save the companies time and money. So how can measure that RPA performance matrix and what are the benefit out of from RPA?
Thanks, Jaiprakash, for this question. RPA's usage is growing in the finance department because it's effective in handling repetitive and redundant tasks, as you mentioned. In addition, they can easily be integrated with machine learning models to take on more complex tasks. Finance departments always push other business units to be lean and cost efficient, and RPA allows finance departments to achieve that. So they can be an example for other businesses. I think most of the routine tasks, almost 80%, are already moved into robotics. For example, invoice booking, bank reco, and payment processes. Also, other processes like preparation of financial statements, and vendor and customer management, as you mentioned in your introduction. Now, coming to your question, I'll say one of the way of measuring accuracy post RPA implementation is to measure the amount of work that normally needs to be redone due to human error, and then measuring the amount of work that needs to be redone after you implemented RPA. This comparison helps in determining how efficient your redesigned processes are. Another thing organizations always are very keen to understand is about cost benefit. I think normally if you apply RPA in any process, payback period is anytime between 1 to 5 to 2 years typically. But again, we don't have choice. Even if it takes 4 to 5 years, if you ask me, will I stop RPA? The answer is definitely no. Because ROI is important, but it cannot be considered as only factor to determine whether to go for RPA or not. And if you talk about FTE, you can actually upskill those people, and we cannot quantify this benefit to the company. For everything, you cannot put a number, and you cannot quantify the satisfaction which employees get after RPA. Somebody very rightly said, if you think good design is expensive, you should also look at the cost of bad design. How costly it is to rework for a simple error done by human being in any process. And at the end, I will say using RPA, finance teams can focus more on strategic tasks such as business planning and investor relations. Team can be upskilled by using doing analytical jobs, and finance team can focus on areas which will improve overall EBITDA of the organization. That's it from my side.
Yeah, thank you, Jagdish. Actually, you very well pointed out the employee satisfaction. So employee satisfaction, one of the proportion for the RPA where the put forward to freeing up from the human resource for the good and some more intellectual work. So I think that will be one of the key point you pointed out. Thank you. Mr. Sambasivan, can you, I'm asking the same question. So what is how we can measure it and what is the benefit out of RPA?
In fact, Jagdish made a very good point in terms of how people can spend time on analytical skills, how they can do better EBITDA improvement. So what we used to call as business partnering. So people can have extra time for business partnering. So I am also of the same belief that RPA is mandatory, irrespective of the payback. We have realized the payback within 2 years on the 5 bots what we have implemented across supply chain, across P2P processes and various things. And these 5 bots have been working for the last 4 years now. and we are seeing the full benefit of RPA. So in fact, what we had done earlier was we did a Six Sigma and then we moved on to RPA. After doing a Six Sigma of the process, improve the process and do an RPA of the improved process. So that's the strategy that we adopted. So that is point number one. And second is instead of ROI, yes, ROI is important. We also take another factor which I used to call internally as LOF, which I think Jayaprakash I mentioned in one of the previous conferences as well. What do I mean by LOF? LOF is leap of faith. So we need to take a leap of faith in addition to ROI. So it is mandated, it is here to stay. So therefore, just looking at ROI, looking at the mathematics is not going to help. We need to take this jump because we do not know how the business is going to grow. For example, if you are getting a saving of X crores or X rupees now, and if the business doubles, then obviously that X becomes 2X or 3X as the case may be. You can't keep on adding people for the increased volumes. So RPA comes in very handy for handling scale in a much better manner. So with that, I will stop. So 2 points. One is LOF. Second is that business partnering. These are the points for ROI for RPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Sambasivan. You pointed out the LOF and as well as the business partnering. Mr. Santosh, can you give your point of view on this?
Absolutely. I think Samba made a very important point on fixing the process before you automate. And I would like to split what we did in DTDC in 2 separate buckets. So there are some unique sort of conditions that are permanent in logistics. Right? 85% of our workforce is blue collar. We have a very vast and distributed network with inputs coming in, especially in P2P at various points. So our order of magnitude is to figure out what is it that you can do a sort of a DFSS, right? Design for Six Sigma, rather than tinker with existing process. And the second, we looked at what is it that we can improve by removing bottlenecks and adding value to business. Once you start getting into adding value, then the discussion of ROI takes a very different trend, right? So we said we want to compress, for example, the time in P2P from invoice submission to posting to payment, right? And we have 500 branches. We have contracted sort of vendors and non-contracted vendors. Contracted vendors are still manageable, but in a non-contracted vendors, what are the solutions that you need to implement, right? Which will help you crunch that time, because that means that I can extract more savings. So it is not a direct benefit on RPA per se, but we are saying, one, can we reduce organizational cost, and then the RPA cost is incidental, right?
Yes.
So that was one part. Second, we looked at how can we add value, right? So so where RPA is used as a digital duct tape, right? You use it as a duct tape to fix the points, right? So for example, in accounts payable, I have 12,000 franchisees. Can I use some of these to show them an outstanding the day before they pay? So that they just click and pay using our digital wallet. So those are some of the things that we did. And the third point, once again, which Samba mentioned, is can you track the growth in F&A, headcount and cost versus the overall revenue growth that you see? And if that divergence is there, that the F&A growth is more or less static compared to the revenue you are growing, then I think you are doing things right. So these 3 things I think we need to identify. What is the process that you need to change? What you need to fix? And context with respect to what the organization is doing.
Thank you, Santosh. So I would like to add one more point here. Even Sam also, even Santosh also told that the ROI. So what I want to make it here is that it is a time to realize ROI. It is not a ROI. It is not an absolute value. What we are not talking about. The time to realize the ROI. How quick as much possible we are getting the ROI. For example, we have to target the hanging fruits, which we can get it at the maximum benefit in the initial phase of implementation. So that is the main crunch we have to see it. Also, the velocity of the RPA, both how it is accomplished with the task as much as possible as human operation doing. So these are two things you want to make it here. Thank you all. Go to the next questions. Again, maybe go to the Sambasivan. This RPA solution is a seamless implementing the benefits and a better user experience. See, in that thing, so what are the challenges we face to implementing the RPA? Can you please?
I'll give the journey what we had done in 2016-17 when we started the RPA. We had actually appointed one agency outside, one consultant. First of all, to study our processes and identify which are amenable to RPA, which are not amenable to RPA. So they came up with a list of some 20 things. So then we said, okay, these are the things which are amenable to RPA, which are the low-hanging fruits. We started with that. And we said, okay, first let us implement the low-hanging fruits. Typically, it took us some 4 to 5 months to actually develop the code, implement the RPA, do some 1 month of testing and all those things. UAT and everything, and we went live after say 4 or 5 months. After that, the first 2-3 months, it's a learning curve. What we also, because everybody has to learn to operate the RPA, to learn the new ways of working, there will be initial hiccups and all those things. What we learned at the time was UAT is very, very critical. Okay. The more time you spend on UAT, the less time you will have post-implementation problems. Okay. So which is a general truth, but in RPA, it is a particular truth. So that is point number 1. The other thing, after so many years of RPA, the second learning what we had is that this is not challenge for implementing RPA, but subsequently when the system is RPA is linked with multiple systems. Let us say it is linked with SAP, it is linked with ICAS platform, it is linked with say Q2T platform. There are some platforms which it is linked with. So whenever you are making any change in any of these platforms, any upgrade or any software change or any code line change, you should always keep in mind how it will impact my RPA solution. It is easy to forget that you have implemented RPA is not a standalone thing.
Yes.
Right. So therefore, any change to any of the systems which you are having, which has got a direct or indirect link with that RPA, it will definitely have an impact, and therefore it is always important to go back and see, okay, how it is going to do the impact analysis. So one is UAT, second is that subsequent changes in the system you need to be careful about. So these are the two, I would say, challenges. I would not say challenges. These are the say caveats before we go into how to do it more effectively, do RPA more effectively. Thank you.
So it's more like a automation from end-to-end process, not only for the particular process, so that we can get the benefit out of that overall.
Yeah, you have to be careful on UAT. It's better to do 2 or 3 UATs. Yes. Because that's what we learned when we implemented. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Maybe Santosh, can you explain your side? So what is the challenge?
Absolutely. So we had a very unique use case where in our P2P process, we not only had finance, but we had the entire approval process, because we used the if-then sort of decision making and programmed it for that purpose, because the costs we have are varied. Some are very high, some are very low, and they are very distributed across our zones and regions. And sometimes the approval levels are also different. So the first question is, what is the level of automation you want? I think that's a very important question to answer. For example, we discovered that a lot of RPA processes use OCR with all the other RPA capabilities. Now, do you want to do how much time do you want to spend on training the bot to recognize the invoice? Or do you want to say, let me capture 4 or 5 fields, which what we did, saying we will capture 4 or 5 fields and the rest we will give the form for validation. Can we send these links via SMS to our vendors? A lot of them are not as savvy as our people are. So I think the first is, what level of automation do you want to introduce? At what point of do you do a big bang? The second is, do you do a big bang or do you compartmentalize, right? So if you're doing a large process, the biggest question is, do you do one small thing at a time and or go everything? So that's a key question. And obviously we chose to go one section of the population at a time, and the aligned processes at a time. We did Samba mentioned UAT. So even when we went live with one region, right? We waited for 15 to 30 days. We took the feedback and then we rolled out in other regions, because whatever happens, people will find a way to find gaps. That whatever UAT you do, there will be some real life use cases and scenarios which will cause failures. So it is always better to you do a pilot after UAT as well.
Yes.
And last but not the least, because we had different stakeholders, right? How do you make them also responsible for the success of this process, which involves RPA? So, for example, we use gamification. We use some rewards. Some has done the most sort of approvals at this time. Those sort of things. So the success was a shared success. It was not a finance success alone. So I think these 3 or 4 steps are very important decision points which we need to consciously take as we roll out RPA, especially if the process is a large one.
Yeah. So that means we have to pick up the most appropriate process to begin with that, right? So to get the successful on the automation. So we have to choose the appropriate process. So instead of taking the old process, we have to take the one process and let us do further successful journey. Yeah.
So let me clarify. What I mean is, suppose I'm going to, we have sort of a completely revamped our P2P process, right? Where in the P2P process, do I need to go for every expense together, right? Or do I say, let me take three expense heads and let's go live with that, do UAT, go in one region, then go rest for those across India, so on and so on. That's what I mean.
So it is interesting, Santosh. Jagdish, can you give your side?
Thanks, Jay Prakash. There are a lot of challenges, and I agree with the points highlighted by Samba and Santosh, like UAD, security concern post implementation, etc. From my personal experience, I think employee resistance and onboarding is one of the biggest challenges I found, and perhaps all the companies due to a simple fact that people fear change by nature. Any changes that accompany implementation of a new technology can be stressful for employees, as they might experience shifts in their responsibilities. Processes are very close to the heart of the employees. They want to do the work in the way they are already doing. That's why it's very sensitive if you ask the process owners to change the way they are working. And also, a lot of employees fear that they might lose their jobs if automation is done. That fear makes them, less confidence during the automation process. And frequent communication from company leaders and executive sponsors to ensure employees are fully informed about what is expected of them throughout the implementation process is very essential to successful adoption. And in the last, I will say leaders must promote a culture that creates a seamless functional environment and makes it easier for the employees to adapt to the new normal. And the steps taken can include involvement of employees, creating co-ownership amongst them for new projects, which lead to shift of the teams towards adoption of new technologies and getting the system set for a longer term. That's it from my side.
Yeah. Thank you, Jagdish. Actually, if see here from my side, what challenge we faced here is that, as Jagdish told that employee satisfaction and resistance, because when we started doing this RPA, the managing the employee resistance is very difficult. Also, another thing is that the insufficient assistance or support from my business department, other departments, especially IT or maybe the purchase or sales, because it is a collective efforts we have to make this RPA. So though it is supported with the finance, but overall it's growth for the entire company. Also, another issue or another challenge what I faced here is that the lack of effective structured data is not available. So to make, because RPA requires structured data, because this is a repetition task which we want to overcome through RPA, and we need the structural data. So that is not available at the immediate process. So in the case, what we made it is that unstructured data we convert to the structured data. Then we made further this RPA. So it will take some more time. So this is a challenge what I face from my company side. Yeah, I'll go to the next question. Maybe Mr. Santosh maybe can answer. There are many cases RPA is not suitable where the human intervention required. Okay. So in that case, do you agree that still some of the process happening without RPA, or maybe I can say the non-RPA exist?
Yeah. So I will say that there is an important decision to be made whether you want to hard code those changes in your core systems, right, or core applications, or do you want to use RPA where bots are a bolt-on, right? So bots are normally a bolt-on. They work outside most of the systems and try to get stuff together or do things which a normal human would do. So the first decision point is from a long-term resilience perspective, do you want to change your whole ERP or do you want to use a bot to try and get things together?
Okay.
So, correct. So if there are multiple system interfaces, right, as you do in supply chain or other areas, then it is always better to have an RPA rather than not. And if it is in application process, then the decision arrives as to whether you want to do a different level of hard coding, you want to put APIs, you want to build the workflows in the application itself rather than use bots. So that is the I think the key factor that one needs to figure out if you want to do RPA. But the normal use case where there are bottlenecks, where there are reconciliations, right, with data across systems, then this is a very good use case for automation.
Yeah, thank you, Santosh. Jagdish, from your point?
I'll say if somebody is working for routine and repetitive tasks, that should be brought to RPA. And this is very generic in nature, irrespective of whether, irrespective of whichever industry and what you are doing. I'll say that something, for a same guy has to put 1,000 strokes, doing the same thing in a day. And even machine could do that 1,000 strokes. I mean, human effort can be saved, as simple as that. This could be true with anything and everything, for example, let's take a security guard who was entering the time of people coming to office and who knew whom to allow and whom to know. So using RPA and automation, all incoming and outgoing details can be captured, and that too very efficiently. I'll say this is very simple example of RPA. But on the other side, we should also understand that companies cannot automate everything. There will always be some level of contextual knowledge we will require for a process, and human intervention will always be required. If we talk about accounting, you can automate the transaction processing, but as you move higher up, you will feel that this decision making and contextual knowledge is required, and
Yes.
that's where human intervention will always come.
Yes. Thank you, Jagdish. Samba, your side?
Yeah, so I think both Jagdish and Santosh have covered. For me, a simple thumb rule which I use, if some routine activity somebody takes say more than 10 minutes every day, that is worth considering for RPA. Similarly, 1 hour per week. Similarly, 1 day per month.
Okay.
An activity which is routine and repetitive, which takes this much for a particular individual, this we consider as something which is worthy of automation of RPA. So that's what I would say.
If you see my side, the process, something's already matured or it is stable. We need not go for the automation. That was I feel. Similarly, the automation, the benefit what we are getting out of this automation is if you feel that it's not sufficient or it's not worthwhile, maybe we cannot go for the RPA. Maybe we can go with the manual intervention. Also, some cases like that. If you with or without automation, my efficiency is increasing. So maybe I can stop with the I can stop only with the manual. So not go for the RPA. That was my thought of thing. Yeah.
So I have a slightly different point of view if you permit. Okay. See, for me it is like this. Anything which is routine can and should be automated. Anything which is routine.
Okay.
Anything which does not require too much of brain work can and should be automated. Okay. Anything requires brain work, but that is routine. can also be automated. Anything which requires brain work, which is not routine, brain work, not routine, is something manual. That's my broad thumb rule. Again, it's a thumb rule. This is how the philosophy which I use internally. Yeah.
Great, Sampath. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I will go for the last question. See, nowadays the government had introduced many RPA related tools, like especially for the GST, something in the income tax side. So, what is your thought on the RPA technology using by the government? Maybe I'll start with Sambu.
Santosh, you are saying?
Sambu, you only, Sambu, sorry.
So myself. Okay. So we have actually, as all of us know, that from July 2017, GST is a very big project which we had actually worked on, and we had implemented it right on that day itself. So we were working on it for more than a year to go live on that particular day, July 2017. And subsequent to that, there are a lot of hiccups which were there. So then we worked with one of the, I think, Big Four, trying to see what all we can automate, how we can do the reconciliation. The initial 1 year was a real chaos. First year, 17-18 was a real chaos. I don't know about other colleagues of mine, but we struggled a lot initially. Then subsequently, we have now kind of, I would say we've gone to the other extreme of resolving those issues, going one step further and automating those things, so that now it is not even taking any time of our team also. So it's gone to that level of automation. I would say it is 90-95% is automated. Reconciliation is like more than 99% plus is reconciled.
Okay.
And we are able to confirm wherever the party has paid or not paid. We are able to have full control. So it's kind of, I would say it's a good journey. From 2019, 2021, we have been able to do a lot of, because it's a mammoth task, I would say. The number of interventions which we had to do, the number of the RPA solutions we had put in, there were at least some 10-12 projects which we had done only on GST automation, RPA projects. So it is a large area, and I think it's something which is worthy of automation. Same thing is to do with that QR code thing, e-invoicing, TDS, TCS. All these things are very good candidates for RPA, if you ask me. All of these, whatever I said, right? Which we have done. That's what I'm talking about, right? So all of these things are automatable and RPA-able. Okay. So there is enough and more scope in automating all these tax-related activities. Thank you.
That is great, Santosh?
Yeah, absolutely. So I echo Sandha. I mean, GST is perhaps the most important aspect. And in our case, it is even more complex because we have a whole host of logistics vendors and franchisees who are our customers. So we have these peculiar situations where the person has a GST valid when we are issuing the invoice, but it is invalid when you are filing a return. Correct. So that is a very peculiar issue, right? Similarly, on the vendor side also, when you do the C block and stop the payment, etc. So those are areas which are automatable. And the other side for me is also on the e-way bills, which are very specific to logistics, right? So I have the customer invoice. I have my own consignments. How do I get that going? And I think government has been making significant sort of interactions with us on both these areas. So GST also, they have been very sort of interactive. And on the e-way bill side also, especially anything which has any manufacturing sort of process, will understand the complexity there. Right? So that is on the service side, we do tend to go, while I am a service business, we still have to deal with the e-way bill complexity, and that is I think a great area of opportunity for.
Okay. Good, great, Santosh. Jagdish.
I absolutely agree with Santosh and Samba for their points, and definitely a lot of changes are done in GST and e-invoicing being imposed in India as well as several other countries, and government and regulators play a very major role in encouraging digital innovation and in incentivizing the development of these technologies for the benefit of society. We saw a lot of changes in regulations recently, be it from financial reporting side, secretarial compliance side, or tax laws. And corporates don't have the choice but to follow these regulations, which require intense information. And to comply these laws, we have to digitize and automate our processes. And RPA also plays a very important role in doing that. And another point I want to mention is that in the midst of this business disturbance over last 2 years, there is something happening in the world which is very alarming, like how profit shifting is happening by forming several subsidiaries in low tax countries such as Ireland or even Caribbean nation, etc. And regulators have caught quite a bit internationally that many developed countries are losing revenues by all these, and hence they are proposing a global minimum tax rate of around 15% as agreed by 130 countries and even OECD, which is yet to be finalized, and some kind of additional international reporting to make it transparent, which may be added over now. How MNCs are structure their operations, and that has big ramification in my mind in terms of how companies need to gear up to be digitally savvy, because the data which is expected to be provided is too intense, and companies don't have the choice but to follow the regulations, and there would be a burning need for automation and RT implementation. So in the end, I'll say government regulations and compliances are changing very quickly. And there is a big opportunity out there for smart tech companies also to help companies in this space.
Yeah, thank you, Jagdish. If see our side, especially for this GST, the government introduced, especially for the e-invoices, effective from last October. Actually, we are celebrating the first year anniversary after GST e-invoice happened. Then after that, you see that so far it is 50 crores aboard is the eligible for this. Mandatory for this all the invoices. As per my guess, maybe the government also maybe implement for the between either 25 crores or 10 crores maybe effective from 1st April, 1st January. So that it will cover up everything. Everyone will have the enjoying these facilities what the government of India in the GST can be support. So this helps us to the for the more immediate credit from our side, as well as the reconciliation and the ITR filing. Everything is simplified. So these are the major things what the government made it through RPI and the other technology. It has helped us to the all the corporate and the other MSME for the quick GST return, as well as the getting the ITC credit. So I would conclude with that in the conclude note that RPI is a powerful automation solution that offer a variety of the opportunity to improve the quality, increase the control, as well as the flexibility, also unlock the scope of the automation possibilities wherever. However, a clear RPI vision and strategy feeding into the implementation approach and operating model prerequisites for the success. So those suppose the RPI adoption will continue to grow in the year to come, moving forward. But more while the more advanced robotic solution will continue mature and adopted across the countries. But the organizations who are already successful in RPI, still they go for the advanced thing, pushing the advanced thing to gain the benefit of the enhanced and the cognitive automation solution. So with that, I conclude our session. I would like to maybe Nikita, do you have any Q&A? Is there anything from our side?
Absolutely. Firstly, gentlemen, a big round of applause to all of you. And of course, you have to clap with us for yourself. That was an amazing session. And gentlemen, let me tell you, this is a session where we've got the maximum number of questions. So brace yourselves. Very first question is from Mr. Radhakrishna Gangi Seti. Leaders, please feel free, answer. Anybody can answer. So the question is, any opportunities for using RPA in FPA and A processes? Because he says I have heard mostly in AP, AR, and GL.
Maybe Santosh, could you answer?
Yeah. So there, see, the in FP&A it's slightly more difficult, because what you can do is you can find out the what with RPA, correct? What is the variance? What was the budget? What is the actual? And which line items the difference has happened. But if you want to do RPA beyond that, then it is multi-system, right? So for example, if you're it's a pure manufacturing organization, then you need to figure out what has happened to your sales and what are the drivers of those sales. So do you have a CRM system? which customers have gone up or down. So those sort of analysis may be requiring a little more than what conventional RPA processes offer. Right? So it can be done, but it will be multi-layer. Right? So you will have to very clearly define what is the outcome you need, and even then you will continue to get exceptions. Right? So maybe you'll get 60-70% of the answer, but as Samba said, it is brain and work both.
Great answer, Mr. Santosh. Thank you so very much for answering. Next question is by Mr. Yash Batra. Digital initiatives ROI can be measured for manufacturing and allied functions as their objective is to increase the productivity. In case of finance, being a support function, effectiveness is more important than efficiency, except AP or tax compliance. How do we make sure reasonable ROI for the same? Quite a bit of a paragraph. Let me basically, the question is, because finance is seen as a function, effectiveness is more important than efficiency. So how do you make a reasonable ROI for the same?
I can try. It's a very generic question they're asking. It's not about RPA, right? It's basically asking about the efficiency of finance. How do you evaluate the efficiency of finance, right? It's a very interesting question. So for me, it is like this. First of all, I don't agree to the statement that it's only effectiveness which is there and efficiency is not the role of finance. I'll tell you where it comes from. For example, cost is a big subject by itself. If you look at cost, so there is revenue, there is cost, and then balance is profit, right? Cost has got multiple line items. There will be some companies have 20 line items, some companies will have 200 line items. Finance can play a very great role in looking at the efficiency of each and every line item and suggest ways of improvement by doing proper data analytics of the various KPIs and then suggest it to the business partners and help them reduce the cost. So all this I would call it as efficiency, because you are trying to improve the KPI, right? Any KPI which you are improving, okay, if you can save 5% here, if you can, for example, I can remember where the freight cost, by looking at some kind of artificial intelligence solution, we have tried to kind of optimize the truckload, let us say. Instead of sending it, say 90% fill, if you are able to send all the truckloads, we also have a lot of truck movements, thousands of truck movements happen every day, because we have got set-top boxes moving here and there across the entire country. So it's a very large stop. You can actually put in some RPA solutions and improve the efficiency by at least 10%. Straight away, you'll get a 10% saving. When you're talking about 10% in a 100 crore cost line item, we are talking about 10 crore in a year. So therefore, finance can do a very great job. In fact, I would say that we have, for example, finance was given the task by our MD to reduce the cost of, say, 2021 lower than what it was in 2020. We took it as a challenge, and we are working on that, and possibly we may reach there as well. So therefore, yes, finance can and will be able to do a lot of work on the cost as a subject. I'm not getting into any other areas because cost is one, and also cash flow and on, say, interest cost. So many things you can look at efficiencies, right? So I'm really surprised by this question. Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to add a few more points. So you see that the finance side is the finance department is the only department who can have the overall view of the entire operation, including the purchase, sales, and the overhead, everything. They can see that where they can cut the cost. Maybe some of the companies, they're giving the option to the employees, I mean, in the front side, to give the teams to reduce the cost. So in terms of the any way, either the production cost or the finance cost, or maybe the forward contract to control the forex loss or gain, or maybe the optimizing the loan to reduce the interest. There are multiple choices we have. So as a finance side, so we can take anything, even automation. What Sam was saying, that to make the
I think there is some connection issues.
Yeah.
Audience members, yes, Mr. Jayaprakash, Mr. Santosh, Mr. Ganesan, and Mr. Jayaprakash. I mean, just listening to you talk, right? I think I can add the term CA in front of my name. I'm sure a lot of audience members will resonate with the name. Thank you so very much for those very educational answers. Of course, kind words for all of you. We've got Mr. Prakash Shahu writes in good evening to all of you from him. Mr. Vipin Khanna writes in good session again. Mr. Pramod writes in very enriching session. Shri Manna Narayan Jetty writes in very interesting insight. We completely second that. What a pleasure to have all of you with us. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.